The Circular Momentum Show, the premier podcast and information source for leaders in the IT asset disposition and IT reseller community. With a focus on growth strategies, IT lifecycle services, and making sustainability profitable and beneficial to the environment.
Today, we're looking more into the incredible market dynamics in our industry. IDC forecasts the used and refurbished data center asset market will grow at over 20% CAGR through 2029, reaching nearly $20 billion. To put that in perspective, it's comparable to mobile phone remarketing, which typically runs at about 22 to 23% CAGR and is one of the highest growth segments in the entire ITAD industry. But here's what makes this one different. We're not talking about $300 laptops or mobile phones. We're talking about servers for $5,000 to $50,000 and GPU-enabled servers commanding $100,000 to $300,000 in the secondary market. The opportunity is massive, but so are the challenges. These are some bet-your-business deals with those kind of valuations. And testing and grading GPU-enabled servers requires specialized knowledge. You need to validate that an H100 or A100 performs within specs under load, not just that it powers on. That requires some more sophisticated testing infrastructure, trained personnel, and significant capital investment in some cases. Can ITAD providers scale fast enough to capture this opportunity? Let's find out. Laura Graydon, welcome back to the Circular Momentum Show. All right. Let's dig into what's included in that $8 billion forecast. What specific services are driving this growth?
Yeah, the forecast includes a comprehensive range of services as part of the taxonomy. So first are the decommissioning services. This is the physical removal of equipment from data centers, and it's becoming more complex with liquid-cooled infrastructure and high-density deployments. Second are the redeployment services. That's helping organizations move equipment to new locations or cascade it to different uses within their own data centers. Third is data destruction services. And as we discussed last time, this extends beyond just hard drives to include the telemetry data in management controllers and other embedded storage.
What else is in the mix?
Also, remarketing services. That's the actual resale of equipment in secondary markets. Logistics management, coordinating the movement, storage, and distribution of assets, and also value recovery consulting, right? It's helping organizations optimize their asset disposition strategies to maximize those returns. It also includes compliance reporting, and those are things like the documentation needed for regulatory requirements, audit trails, and the chain of custody for security. Finally, there's customized asset disposition services, such as the tailored solutions that are specific to industries or unique equipment types.
Yeah, that sounds like a comprehensive service portfolio. Which of these services do you expect to see the highest demand? And what are the most unique or emerging services?
I see three key buckets. So first is value recovery consulting. Organizations are increasingly realizing they need strategic partners who understand the market dynamics and pricing trends and the optimal timing for asset disposition. So it's not just about getting rid of equipment, it's about maximizing value. And as we discussed last time, this also requires lifecycle asset management as a core capability. The second bucket is that I'm seeing more partnerships between ITAD providers and OEMs. The manufacturers themselves are recognizing that the circular economy models can extend their customer relationships and create new revenue streams. We're seeing more branded refurbishment programs and certified pre-owned equipment offerings from the OEMs and via their channel partners.
We've been doing some other reporting on the fact that the OEMs like HP and Lenovo and Dell and others are using their market strength to capture more of the tech afterlife. And they're using ITADs to actually deliver the services. It's going to be interesting to see how the ITADs compete against the OEMs for these services that fall in their own wheelhouse.
Yeah, it really is. And in many cases, it is a partnership. Which leads me to the third bucket, and that third bucket is sustainability reporting metrics. It's something I already see as a must-have service, but it is growing. I predict that 2026, this year, right, will be the year we start to see organizations report how they're driving sustainability with their IT suppliers via the circular economy.
Yeah, so it's not just enough to claim sustainable practices. You need to deliver the data behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. And with regulations like the EU's Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive and ultimately increasing investor pressure around ESG metrics, organizations need that quantifiable data on their circular economy initiatives. So, ITAD providers who can deliver that comprehensive sustainability reporting, like carbon avoided, materials recovered, equipment reused, all those factors, right? They will have a competitive advantage.
And that's a service that didn't even exist in a meaningful way 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really going to become table stakes for enterprise customers very quickly.
Let's shift to the used and refurbished data center asset market, where IDC forecasts this just reached under 7 billion, just under 7 billion in 2025, and is expected to grow at a 5-year CAGR north of 20% through 2029 to reach nearly 15 billion. This includes servers, both x86 and non-x86, storage, routers, and switches. Lara, these market sizes are huge. Can you put them in perspective by comparing them to other ITAD segments?
Great question, Pete. So when you look at the end user compute devices like laptops, desktops, and workstations, what we're forecasting at IDC, our CAGR is more in the 6 to 8% range. For mobile phones, it is higher. It's around the 2020. For mobile phones, it is higher. It's around 22, 23%. But data center infrastructure at over 20% CAGR is spectacular compared to what I've seen in my forecast previously, and especially given the higher average selling prices of this equipment.
So it's the growth of the high value assets that are driving a lot of that overall growth.
Yes, exactly. A refurbished enterprise laptop, for example, might sell for, say, $300 to $500 roundabout. But a refurbished data center server can sell for $5,000 to $50,000, depending on configuration. And a GPU-enabled server, there we're talking $100,000 to even $300,000 or more in the secondary market.
Yeah. So what are the primary drivers of these items? It's that AI-based compute driving most of it. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. The need for AI is absolutely a major driver. Hyperscalers and also certain enterprise customers are replacing their traditional architectures with the GPU-enabled or custom architectures. Right, it's not just about the AI. We're also seeing growth driven by edge computing deployments, the 5G infrastructure build out area, and also organizations in emerging markets who won't afford, right, that price tag of new equipment, but they also need modern infrastructure.
So there's that push and the pull. Equipment is being retired from tier one deployments and strong demand from tier two and tier three use cases.
Precisely. And that's where the concept of cascading becomes so important. A server that's no longer optimal for a hyperscaler's AI training workload, for example, might be a perfect fit for a general compute offering, or, for example, for a dev and test environment.
So let's talk more about the GPUs specifically. In North America, IDC forecasts that resold x86 servers with accelerators, mostly GPU, will comprise mid-single digits of the market this year. But by 2029, that grows to just under a third of the market. So that's a massive shift.
It is. It is. And it reflects the penetration of AI workloads throughout the infrastructure stack. So what starts as specialized AI training clusters eventually becomes mainstream. We're seeing GPU-enabled servers deployed for everything from video processing to financial modeling to scientific research.
Yeah, so what are the leading models of accelerators we're talking about here?
Well, the NVIDIA A100, H100s, H200s, they will be the most common in the secondary market over the next few years. These are the workhorses of the current AI boom. However, as newer generations like Blackwell become standard in the tier 1 deployments, these previous generation GPUs will continue to flow into the secondary market and in increasing volumes.
So there's strong demand for these items?
Yeah, absolutely. Not every organization needs cutting edge Blackwell performance. For many AI inference workloads, model fine tuning or smaller scale training, an H100 or even an A100 is more than sufficient, and at a fraction of the cost of new equipment.
Yeah, and what about other accelerators beyond NVIDIA products? Are we seeing AMD, Intel, or other custom silicon in the secondary market?
Yes, yeah, we are starting to see AMD Instinct accelerators and Intel's Gaudi processors, for example. But it is the case that NVIDIA still dominates both the primary and secondary markets. That said, as organizations diversify their AI infrastructure to avoid vendor lock-in and overall to manage costs, we'll certainly see more variety in the secondary market.
Here's what we often hear. We don't need ISO or other certifications right now, or our clients aren't asking for it. Just because it's not needed today doesn't mean it won't be required tomorrow. Certifications usually take 7 to 16 weeks to complete, that's 2 to 4 months. If a client suddenly requires it, waiting isn't an option. These certifications help you qualify faster for global and OEM contracts. Keeps your operations audit ready all year. Cuts internal waste and rework. Builds trust with buyers before price is even discussed. For example, a U.S. plastics and machinery manufacturer invested $8,000 in ISO 9001 plus ISO 14001. The next quarter, they qualified for 2 OEM contracts worth $240,000. Another firm in the same space skipped certification and couldn't even bid. ISO isn't an expense, it's proof you're ready when opportunity knocks. Don't wait for a client to demand it be the one already certified. Book your free consultation today with MG Environmental Consulting.
Laura, we've painted a picture of tremendous growth and opportunity for ITADs, but let's also talk about the challenges a bit. What are some of the biggest obstacles ITAD providers face in capturing these opportunities?
Yeah. First is technical expertise. Testing and grading GPU-enabled servers requires that specialized knowledge. You need to validate not just that the GPU powers on, but that it performs within specifications under load. And that requires sophisticated testing infrastructure and trained personnel. Second are capital requirements. As we discussed in the first episode, liquid cooling test beds, component level testing equipment, and secure data sanitization tools for complex systems, these are all things that require significant investment.
And what else?
Third, I'd say market intelligence. The secondary market for data center equipment is dynamic, as we've established. Pricing can fluctuate based on new product releases, supply chain conditions, and overall demand shifts. And ITAD providers really need that real-time market data to optimize pricing and timing. And fourth, I'd add logistics complexity here. Remember, these are heavy, fragile, high-value assets. Moving a rack of GPU servers isn't like shipping pallets of laptops. You need specialized handling, insurance, and security.
Yeah, and presumably global economic uncertainty, which the report mentions, adds another layer of complexity.
Yes, absolutely. The global economic slowdown, elevated risk and uncertainty, and particularly U.S. tariffs are putting pressure on trade. This raises costs and affects the sentiment in the overall technology sector. And ITAD providers who are operating internationally really need to navigate these complexities.
So despite these challenges, the growth forecasts remain strong. What gives you confidence in these numbers?
Several factors. First is the sheer scale of infrastructure investment happening now. Organizations are clearly deploying AI infrastructure at strong rates, and that means unprecedented volumes of equipment will eventually need asset disposition. The second reason is that economics of the secondary market are compelling for buyers. In an uncertain economic environment, refurbished equipment offers a way to deploy modern infrastructure at significantly lower cost. Third, sustainability pressures. They are real and they are growing. Organizations cannot just landfill this equipment, both from a regulatory standpoint and a reputational one. Really, the circular economy isn't optional in today's and the future data center.
Yeah, what other advice would you give ITAD providers looking to capitalize on this opportunity we've been talking about?
Start investing now in the capabilities we've discussed. Things like component harvesting, liquid cooling testing, telemetry data management, value recovery consulting, and sustainability reporting. You don't want to wait for the market to come to you. Second, and related, is to build strategic relationships. This is with OEMs, with hyperscalers, and also with enterprise customers. Position yourself as a lifecycle management partner and not just a disposal service. Finally, it's market intelligence. You need to understand pricing trends and patterns and emerging technology. You need to understand pricing trends, demand patterns, and emerging technologies that are being bought today. That secondary market is becoming more sophisticated, and it makes it a real challenge to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking about smaller ITAD providers who might not have the capital for major infrastructure investments. What do you suggest for them?
Yeah, specialization is absolutely a viable strategy. Maybe you focus on the specific geography, a specific equipment type, or a specific service like data destruction or logistics. You don't have to be or want to be, right, all things to all customers, but you do need to be excellent at something. Partnerships are also key. Smaller providers often can be successful partnering with larger ones in order to access things like testing infrastructure or market channels. I see the ecosystem becoming more collaborative.
Laura, if you look beyond 2029, what trends do you see shaping the ITAD industry in the next decade?
First is the trend of continued architectural diversity. Right, we've talked about ARM servers, but we're also going to see more custom silicon. Google's TPUs, Amazon's Graviton and Trainium, Microsoft's Maya, for example. Right, ITAD providers will need to handle an increasingly diverse equipment portfolio. Second, edge computing. Edge computing will drive geographic distribution of infrastructure. The AI era isn't only in massively centralized data centers. We will continue to see more distributed deployments, and that changes the logistics and service delivery model for ITAD. Third is that circular economy. The circular economy principles will become more embedded in product design. We're already seeing modular servers designed for easier component replacement and upgrade. This will ultimately make ITAD processes more efficient and will also require new skills.
Yeah, and what about regulatory changes?
I expect there to be no let up on regulation around e-waste, data privacy, and sustainability reporting. It's really only going to increase. The EU is leading here, but other regions will follow. ITAD providers need to stay ahead of regulatory changes and do so in a way that's of service to your customers. Help them navigate compliance.
Yeah, and any final thoughts for our followers?
Data center ITAD market is at an inflection point. The growth opportunity is real and substantial, but it does require strategic investment and operational excellence. The providers who succeed will be those who evolve from being disposal services to being those strategic lifecycle management partners to their customers. And this isn't just about handling end-of-life equipment. It's about maximizing value. It's about enabling sustainability. And ultimately, it's about driving the circular economy. And that's a much more sophisticated and valuable proposition.
And it aligns perfectly with the mission of this podcast, which is to explore how we can build more sustainable and circular technology ecosystems. Laura Graydon, I want to thank you so much for joining us for this two-part series. The insights you've shared from IDC's research are invaluable for everyone in the ITAD industry.
Thanks for having me, Pete. It's been a great conversation.
We've had some great sessions with Laura over the past couple months, focusing on the data center marketplace for ITADs and the explosive growth that's going on. It's driving many of our businesses, and we hope you enjoyed the insights we provided through these discussions, and join us again for future installments of the Data Center series. Meanwhile, if you like the Circular Momentum Show, please make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And I'd also like to suggest you go to our website, circmo.com, CIRCMO.com, where you'll find links to our podcasts and also some great written content in our thought leadership section. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Circular Momentum Show.
You've been listening to the Circular Momentum Show. Thanks for joining us. Don't miss our next episode coming soon, where we feature market leaders in the IT asset disposition and reseller community. Thanks to our sponsors, MG Environmental. And special thanks to our guests and growth strategy consultants, Circular Momentum. The Circular Momentum Show